So this is just one of the few examples of the stuff that I can get on the road. Now this happens to be in Green Bay, not too far from us, but this came out of Jim Beam, right? Okay, so if I were to run it was a tear down from, I don't know, one of their distillery buildings or whatever you call them. Anyhow, this company buys, or they do the tear downs, I believe, and then they package this stuff, and then I could go in and I can buy that. So for instance, if I wanted to make a bed out of this would actually be a very easy do while on the road, as long as I planned ahead. So for instance, now these are not long enough for the headboard part, but they're getting close on the foot. But a place like that, I know for a fact that they carry longer stuff. In fact, there's a piece right there that's the same stuff, and you can see that it's worn out. It's probably maple, but I could buy 2 long ones, 2 short ones. Then I can apply all the joinery. I can do the mortising while I'm on the road on the RV. I can get all that done. I wouldn't be able to rip something like that, so I have to plan ahead on that. And then the jigs that I use for stuff, is it going to match whatever that is? It's maybe 3 3/4. Well, my jigs are 3 inch or 4 1/2. But here's another example of a piece of some really cool wormy spalted stuff that I picked up somewhere along the line. Let's see here once if I have anything else. Oh yeah, I picked up this black walnut. This is one that I started while on the road, again, on a camping trip down in Mississippi or something like that. This is black walnut, and that came from a recycling wood shop. And so you can see I'm starting to make some of the tables and things like that. Oh yeah, even did this. I was able to make those cuts, again, using this template that I had brought along with me. Fortunately, I'm really glad it wasn't a template. This is actually the real thing, but done on the CNC, right? But then I was able to trace that and make some holes for pens and pencils, and there's other things that are going to go in there. This is for a remote control or my cell phone. This is for a beer can. This is for a wine, stemmed wine glass. And then this is for a coffee cup. And then a little spot over on the side to do whatever. And then underneath that would be a tray that would be for the mouse pad and stuff like that. And then the foot, I was able to make a leg out of the same stuff, and then even put the joinery on the end of that. So basically this is that's pretty close to being ready to go. That's going to go on there, and then this, what I did here, I have to go back and look at it. Here's some more actually this was given to me by a friend, but this is some cool spalted stuff, right? That one I ran on the CNC, but it's got a huge potential. When we're camping, sometimes we run across some neat firewood. That's what this is from, but I wouldn't be able to cut that. I would have to have it cut, and that wouldn't be worth it. So that's why going to a sawmill, you can get that kind of stuff, and then they'll either cut it for you, or it's already, a lot of them stock cool stuff. What I want to do is give you an example of, like for instance, this Sinker Cypress that I was building while traveling in the RV. Okay, so I found the Sinker Cypress, really cool stuff. And then I was able to get the project to a pretty advanced stage. I was able to do all the cuts. Is that one? I don't even know if that's one board. I think this might be, yeah, I think this is one board, all right? But it was also pretty weak because it had all these, trenches in it, and it had been under the bottom of the Mississippi for a long, long time. So I decided I was going to put a 2-part epoxy on it, which will actually strengthen it. I'll still end up having to clear this off. You can see some of the issues that occur when you're trying to do stuff on the road. And again, I did this on the fly, but that'll all clean up. You'll see that. It'll be amazing. You won't even recognize this. But I was able to get to a certain stage. I was able to basically cut this board using an 18-volt sliding compound miter on a picnic table down in Tennessee or something somewhere. I was able to buy this, the copper fittings, right? But I didn't have, and I didn't want to buy the tools to solder it because I didn't have them with, and I've got them at home, but that's 1,000 miles away. So I thought, well, why don't I just bury them in the the two-part epoxy. Worked out really well, is actually. And then I'm even pouring some in there, and that becomes the joinery, is two-part epoxy joinery. Anyhow, so that's as far as I could get on that. I built, this is the same, this is Sinker Cypress as well. And so I was able to cut that. The board was actually already to width. That was a board that I found. And then this I did, I think, I forgot how I managed to get that. I think I don't even know. I used a 18 volt saw, you know, a handheld, to basically carve it, and then I sanded it down to give it some shape. But no problem cutting the length because that fit the 18 volt Milwaukee sliding compound miter that I held. Same thing here. This was natural, this shape, and so that was good. This side obviously was not. I think I had to cross cut this, probably a double pass, you know, do it, flip it, do it again in order to get this cut because this was a wider board, too wide. But then again, I beat this up somehow and then sanded it, and then I was able to do the two miters on the end, and actually I think that's turning out pretty well. Then this was another part of that. This is Sinker Cypress again, right? Okay, and I'm into Rustic if you haven't already guessed. And so again, working from a picnic table, I used a pattern of one that I had made on a CNC. This was made on a CNC. I took that, laid it over the top of this board, traced it, and then again used that jigsaw, the handheld, to do this. It wasn't easy. It worked. And it's rustic, but I can finish this stuff when I get back home, which I am now, right? But I can clean it up if I want to, or I can just leave it and say, you know, that's okay because that's where I did that, and that was cool. But this one is the wine stem glass thing. This is for a beer can. Basically, is going to mount like that. That'll be that's a sofa server table. This is going to be one of my favorite. This will go with me on all of our camping trips because it reminded me of another camping trip. So I was able to get all of that while camping. And here I had I take a drill press, a small drill press, an 8-inch Wen, and I mount that on the micro bench. Okay, I don't have any mounted right now, but you know, there's the micro bench right there. I mounted on the micro bench on a campsite. And then with that, I was able to drill probably a 3/4 inch Forstner. And then I used probably a smaller Forstner or drill bit here, like a 3/8, and then I carved those out. So again, still able to do that stuff while camping. Not easy, but doable. So I got all of that point, even got the first 1 or 2 pours on of the epoxy, but then I had to give up. We were in somewhere along the Mississippi River, and tornadoes were coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, and we just said, we got to get out of here. So we did. But also at one of the campgrounds, and I don't know if I have footage of it, but this is a piece, this stuff is readily available anywhere, Home Depot, whatever. And what it is, it's concrete. People use it all the time. It's for putting the stakes in next to a form. You can see there's holes in it, and that's where they set their forms for like pouring footings and stuff. Again, you know, I have a construction background, so I knew these things were out there. But you know, I got to a point, and this will fit, but I didn't have the right drill bit. I needed, you know, this was a 3/4, I believe, or 5, that's probably 5/8, and this was 5/8 and then some. So it didn't quite fit, and I didn't want to go up to a 3/4. And so again, I didn't have quite the right tool with me to do this. And I thought, I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to wait till I get home, and then I can put this on a big drill press and clean that up. Or I can take a grinder that at home here and and grind this down just a bit. It'll go in there, and then that becomes the foot. And it's also ballast because it's so heavy, right? And these really work well, by the way. If you haven't done this for a sofa server, they really, really work well. Now, but I needed to cut this because it was way too long. And again, trying to cut that on a picnic table, I tried really hard. I had a metal blade and the jigsaw, and I went, and that, unreal. And then I also even had an 18 volt Sawzall type of thing. And even that with a metal blade, I just couldn't, look at that. That's like 5-10 minutes worth of trying to go through that. Well, in a few seconds, I can go through that with a metal cutting bandsaw in my shop. this is just an example. For instance, back at the shop, I have a jet. It's pretty decent size, metal cutting. Well, if I were to turn this on right now and let that blade come down, it would take about maybe 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to cut through solid steel. No brainer. That's all I would have needed to do before I left on that trip. Make a bunch of those up. The weight I don't mind a little bit in the pickup truck. I like weight in the bed of the truck when I'm pulling an RV. So, but the space, there's hardly no space. Now I'd have 4 of those or 6 of those or something, and then I could build stuff. But I wasn't at my shop. I was still 1,000 miles away. So what I'm saying here is this, is that number one, planning real ahead, not only for the design of the project itself, but also the sequence is huge. And so whenever I do a cut list, I also do a sequence. And when I do a sequence, I also specify what tools needed. So if I were planning to build this, when I was on a camping trip, I'll just kind of let you see that I exist. So hi, I'm Mike. But if I was trying to build this on a camping trip, I knew I was going to build it on a camping trip, then in the sequence, I would then say, okay, what do I need to have with, and what I might need to cut ahead of time, all right? And so, for instance, I had this around anyhow, and I have more of it. I have just standard 3/4 inch steel solid pipe. And so what I would have done is in my sequence, I would have said at home, cut this, do this, do that. And then I would have had these ready to go and just take them with me on the camping trip, knowing that somewhere along the line, I'm going to find some crazy piece of wood like this. This is Sinker Cypress. This is really, I knew nothing about it until I got down to Vidalia or something like that, Louisiana, but found that. Now, our next trip, for instance, we're going to go out to the East Coast. We'll be there for a month or two. And when I get there, I'll Google reclaimed wood near me. I'll Google sawmills near me. And then while my wife is out bike riding or something, I'll go and hang out, right? Take a bunch of cash. It's usually cash, not checks or credit cards. But there's some really, really cool stuff out there. So not knowing what I'm going to run across is kind of part of the fun. But at the same time, if I have the design ahead of time and I have parts like this already made up and sitting in the truck, and I have a few more different sizes of bits. Next time, for instance, I'll take along my copper cutting tube thing. I'll take along my the LP gas torch for soldering. I'll take along some solder, so I don't have to buy any of that the tools themselves. And then I know I'll find something like this. And then when I go to that place to look for it, can I cut that on my 18 volt miter, my Milwaukee 18 volt miter that I have with me? Okay, yes, I can. Can I rip it, if I have to rip something? And what I haven't been doing is quite as often, but I'm going to start doing again, is taking along my 18 volt Milwaukee table saw. And actually fits inside. I'll show you that at one point, but both of them, I bought some at Bass Pro Shops. I bought some big bags. They're vinyl things that cover like Mercury 250 horsepower, 350 horsepower engines. They're motor covers for an outboard motor. Well, they work really, really well for wrapping your power tools and then keeping them in the back of the pickup truck, and they're totally weatherproof, right? So anyways, I take that stuff along, and then I'll look, when I go to those shops, I'll look at what can I cut, what can I cross cut, what can I rip, and then I'll buy, all right? Then I'll take it back to the campsite, and then of course I'll have the micro bench there to do what I need to do, and before you know it, all of a sudden, I'm building another sofa server, or there's other things that I can do where I can build like tables, even some larger stuff. One time I actually built a shed, while I was on the road. That was a tough one, but there I bought 2x6s and I had my saw with, and it wasn't, I don't think I would do that again, but I could certainly build like dining room table bases. I couldn't do the top to a dining room table because I can't get that in the back of my pickup truck and keep it in the back of my pickup truck when we're attached, when we have the fifth wheel attached. But I can certainly have the post back there, and it's not going to hurt them to get a little bit wet. stuff like that. So that's what I'm planning for now on this next stuff to do. And that's why I needed to prototype. I needed to prototype how I was going to do my joinery. Then from there, be able to make my list of tools that I needed to have along, bits that I needed to have along, even fasteners like the GRKs that I use. You can't find those everywhere. And so all I had to do is take a few of those along, right? The right size, right length, right type, and make sure I have the bit for every one of those. I make sure I have the right glue, the right this and that, clamps, but not too much, because it's like taking a trip to the moon in a spaceship. You know, you just can't put everything on board, all contingencies. You can't do that. I tried that for a while and it didn't work out. Just way too much weight, way too much stuff to deal with when we're on a camping trip. So I really had to focus on only certain aspects. And that's the idea behind prototyping. Then from those prototypes, create the cut list. Then from the cut list, write the sequence. And the sequence, again, would include what tool, what parts are needed. So that's where I'm going with this.